Maybe you shouldn't tell anybody that I said this, but you know all those tropes about Jews controlling the world, or at least wanting to control the world? They're actually true. Our goal as Jewish people for the last 3,300 years, since the revelation at Sinai, has been to control the world.
The Jews will control the world, whether they going like it or they hate it. That's a fact. It's written in a book that the Goyim admit that it's the book of God. So there's no argument here.
In Isaiah chapter 63, the day of the great and terrible day of the Lord, it says that the Lord will come out from a place called Edom and he will crush Edom. Now, I'm just a broadcaster here, okay? In Jewish understanding, Edom is really talking about the Christianity.
Asking what's going to be with the Goyim when Mashiach comes. Will they be destroyed and annihilated? Someone asks, who cares? Okay. As a nation, they'll cease to exist, even as individuals. Every individual, no survivors. Not only as a nation, they'll cease to exist, even as individuals. As Goyim, they're gone. Their personality, as they exist b'fnei atzmam, as they would exist independently of Klal Yisrael, they don't exist. They're done. In modern terminology, they call it cultural genocide. There's a term for it by the progressives. Well, cultural genocide, and they use the word genocide. So there's the opinion who says that they'll be annihilated, but they basically learn there's going to be cultural genocide. That you know what, the Goyim as they exist as Goyim, that's done with.
The Jews run the show in the world, not because they want, because that's what God wants. And it's written in the Torah that the non-Jews admit that is the word of God. If they didn't admit, what's the proof? But in the Torah it says that in every nation you will always be the highlight of the place. Even though we have very small community compared to America, 300 million Americans, 5 million Jews. There's no comparison. But the Jews are everywhere. Politics, all the assistants of Trump, Jews. All the assistants of Sleepy Joe, Jews. Obama, Jews. Everyone around there, Reform Jews, Conservative Jews, Chabadnik, this, convert. It's all somehow. Same thing was in Spain. Same thing was in many different countries.
Instead of hating the Jewish people, you should love us. You should kiss our feet, you fool. We're the chosen people, not you. You should actually look at the truth and understand that the Jewish people are the greatest gift to mankind.
In 740 AD, the king of the Chazars converted to Judaism and made it the state religion. Incredibly, within a few centuries, the people of Khazaria convinced themselves that they were not Gentiles after all. Today, the Ashkenazim, or Chazars, are the vast majority, about 80% of those who call themselves Jews.
The Jews, I call them Jews to you because they're known as Jews. I don't call them Jews. I refer to them as so-called Jews because I know what they are, and I can prove that. The Eastern European Jews, who form 92% of the world's population of those people who call themselves Jews, were originally Chazars. They were a warlike tribe that lived deep in the heart of Asia. And they were so warlike that even the Asiatics drove them out of Asia into Eastern Europe.
A small percentage of the Israeli population, several thousand strong, they are united by religious zealotry and ultranationalism. They oppose Israeli democracy and any peaceful dealings with the Palestinians.
If we want to understand Rabbi Kahana, his message was that we need to go to war, because, in fact, what will bring our redemption is not prayer. What will bring redemption is war. But today we're going in exactly the opposite direction. Instead of war, there's peace now. There's an attempt to prevent war at all costs. And if we can force the army to go back to being offensive, an army of revenge, an army which cares about Jews more than anybody else, then we'll be able to bring the final redemption in the only way possible, through war. War now.
Источник зла – это Бог, не сатана. В иудаизме сатана – это и есть Бог.
You imply that Israel has the right to exist because of what happened to the Jews during World War II. Why in Palestine? Don't the Palestinians too have the right to a secure homeland? Why do they have to suffer and make way for the Jews?
Look, we can go back and we can argue over the birth of Israel, justice of the birth of Israel. We can argue over whether or not there should be an Israel. There is an Israel today. There's a strong Israel today, a vibrant Israel that is not going to disappear. Palestinians have missed opportunities. There is an opportunity today. I don't see any useful purpose in arguing over what justifications Israel has to exist. Israel has all of the justifications in the world to exist. And I don't even think it's appropriate to question the reason why Israel exists. Thank God that there is at least one Israel, an Israel where Jews can live if they want to. They don't have to live there. But if they need refuge, if they want to live in a country that is a Jewish homeland, that's fine. And I think, as I said before, all of us should be delighted that we happen to be around at a time in this world where there is this Israel. To deny Zionism, to reject Zionism, is about as racist an element as you can get. Why should all of these people, Palestinians and others, deserve a homeland if the Jews can't have a homeland? Have not the Jews suffered enough all of these?
I suppose then it wasn't missed on anyone in the audience that Mr. Glitzer was deploying that same familiar lawyer's tactic. The question that was put to him was, if we accept the legitimacy of the state of Israel, why don't we also accept the legitimacy of a Palestinian state? And then Mr. Blitzer went on to tell us all the good reasons why we should accept the legitimacy of the state of Israel, something which, by the way, I concur with. But that still doesn't answer the question. If one does accept the legitimacy of the state of Israel, why doesn't one also accord the same rights to self-determination and statehood to the Palestinians? That was the question, as I understand it, that was put to him.
Often when there is dissent expressed in the United States against policies of the Israeli government, people here are called anti-Semitic. What is your response to that as an Israeli Jew?
Well, it's a trick. We always use it. When from Europe somebody is criticizing Israel, then we bring up the Holocaust.
Yes.
There are certain conditions, according to Jewish law, under which non-Jews may live here. This doesn't apply to the Arabs. They don't fit the category. They have to get the hell out. Whoever leaves under his own steam will save his own life. Whoever doesn't will have to pay the price. This is the land of Israel.
While other settlements are fenced in, the people here prefer a different approach: deterrence.
The Arab knows that when a Jew fences himself in, the rest of the land is his. We want to prevent that. He puts his plow next to the Jew's fence and starts plowing all the way to his village. And that's unacceptable. If I don't have a fence, it confuses him. Our fence, in fact, goes as far as an M16 can reach. The range of an M16 bullet is our fence.
Those who threaten Israel threaten us. Israel has always faced these threats on the front lines. And I will bring to the White House an unshakable commitment to Israel's security. That starts with ensuring Israel's qualitative military advantage.
We will stand with Israel. We want them around not just for 60 years, but for 600 years. And when I'm president of the United States, they will have an unwavering ally in me.
Unless they keep fighting all the way with it till they wipe them all out.
Wipe them all out.
Yeah, they got to go strong with this.
I think we should go with all force and just go in and get them all.
ארץ קטנה כמונו, זה מדהים. אני רואה שאנחנו קונים את מנהטן וקונים את הונגריה וקונים את רומניה וקונים את פולין. אז אין בעיות לנו, אני מבין, שהכישרונות והקשרים זה פעם מגיע כמעט בכל מקום.
Controls the most awesome goddamn propaganda force in the whole godless world. Who knows what stick will be better for truth on this network? So you listen to me. Listen to me. Television is not the truth. Television is a goddamn amusement park. Television is a circus, a carnival, a traveling troupe of acrobats, storytellers, dancers, singers, jugglers, sideshow freaks, lion tamers, and football players. We're in the boredom-killing business. So if you want the truth, go to God. Go to your gurus. Go to yourselves, because that's the only place you're ever going to find any real truth. But man, you're never going to get any truth from us. We'll tell you anything you want to hear. We lie like hell. We'll tell you that Kojak always gets the killer and that nobody ever gets cancer in Archie Bunker's house. We deal in illusions, man. None of it is true. But you people sit there day after day, night after night, all ages, colors, creeds. We're all you know. You're beginning to believe the illusions we're spinning here. You're beginning to think that the tube is reality and that your own lives are unreal.
The whole thing, the whole Greater Israel plan, it operates on two essential things. It's to survive, Israel must become the imperial regional power, and it must affect the division of the entire area around it into smaller states. They stir up sectarian hatred, they divide the whole place into smaller states, and then all these smaller states are fighting each other, and so that kind of legitimizes Israel's existence because it appears to be the only stable force in the area when it's the one who's gone and destabilized the whole thing. And what Chris said about the two stripes on the flag, this is exactly right, the Nile and the Euphrates. This is the plan for Greater Israel. And it includes Syria, it includes Jordan, it includes the top of Saudi Arabia, half of Iraq, parts of Lebanon. This has been the plan for the whole time, and this is why they've gone in there and done things the way they have. It's all part of the Greater Israel Project. And even there was another document that was called Israel's Sacred Terrorism. It was written by a man called Livia Rakash. And it's based on the memoirs of Moshe Sharett, former Prime Minister of Israel. And it basically outlines the 1978 invasion of Lebanon to a T. It's exactly what they did, and it's kind of a smaller, condensed version of this Yinon plan. And the Yinon plan was also outlined by, way back as far as Theodore Herzl. I mean, this has been going on for a long time.
The scenario is borne out by none other than Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion, one of the great founders of Israel. Recorded in an astonishing article in Look magazine, Ben-Gurion predicted that a one-world system presided over by Jerusalem will be set up in the near future. All continents will become united in a world alliance, at whose disposal will be an international police force. All armies will be abolished, and there will be no more war. In Jerusalem, the United Nations, a truly united nations, will build a shrine of the prophets to serve the federated union of all continents. This will be the seat of the Supreme Court of mankind, to settle all controversies among the federated continents, as prophesied by Isaiah.
What we're dealing with here, like when you look at the whole Khazar Empire, that's who these people are. They're Khazars, and they've basically hijacked everything. They've infiltrated into Christianity, they've infiltrated into Judaism, they've probably even infiltrated into Islam. Infiltrated into everything. This is where you've got Christian Zionists, you've got Jewish Zionists, you've got this whole sort of mottled empire that's sort of all over the world. It's infiltrated everywhere. And they're using basically what's outlined, the supremacist ideology that's outlined in the Jewish faith. They're using this to construct their New World Order. And these people believe they're the chosen people. These Khazars are more zealous about following these ideologies, and the actual Jews are, but none of them actually believe in God. They're creating this whole tense situation everywhere to break everything up, to collapse everything, collapse all the economies, collapse Europe, collapse Russia, collapse everything, and create this empire of chaos with this one bastion of control in the middle, which will be Greater Israel.
Let me tell you about the flight of the Khazar warriors out of northern Turkey in 500 AD. They were a despicable bunch. You could go to the king of the Khazars and rent an army from him, an army of 40 or 50,000 men. But it didn't matter what kind of a deal you struck with their monarch. He wasn't called a king, he was called a shagan. Once the battle was done, they rape and pillage. Doesn't matter what kind of agreement you had with the king. That's the way it ended up. And so as a consequence, people in the area garnered a great deal of animosity for these Khazar warriors. And in 500 AD, they were driven out. And as they came down south out of Turkey, some fled to the west into Romania and Hungary and became the Gypsies. The rest followed their monarch, the Chagan, up into the steppes of Russia, and north of there to the Caucasus Mountains. And as they settled in there, they quite easily enslaved the relatively peaceful agrarian Slavic folks that were indigenous to the area. Then they came under pressure to take sides in a growing contention around them. Coming down from the north was Eastern Orthodox Christianity, and coming up from the south was Islam. And they knew that if they succumbed to pressure from either of those to join their organization and embrace their philosophy, it would surely offend the other. And so what they did was a politically expedient maneuver. He called in all the religious leaders of the area, and he got their input, and after the input, he announced, for me and my people, and we're talking about 20 million people and about 4,000 nobility, for me and my people, we choose to become Jews. Now, this was not a heartfelt conversion. This was not something that was deep in their breasts, that they felt they needed to make a conversion because they thought that was the proper way to serve the Creator. This was something that was done as a political expediency. And in the course of studying about their new religion, and you do have to study it, even if you're only going to charade, it is absolutely necessary to study about it so that you can fake it. And in the course of doing so, they came across a character with whom they could truly identify. It was Lucifer, the morning light that fell from grace and became Satan, the adversary. And they formed an inner circle within Judaism dedicated to the forces of evil. Let's define terms. What is a Jew? If you look back in your Old Testament, your Bible, there was 12 Hebrew tribes. The 10 northern tribes were called the house of Israel. The 2 southern tribes were called Benjamin and Judah. More properly pronounced Judah, because we didn't get the harder sound to the J until about 200 years ago. So this is what I would call real Jews, people from the tribe of Judah. And when we start talking about the New World Order, we are not talking about these people at all. We're talking about these Khazar warriors that only pretended to embrace Judaism. And so today, we find that about 92% of the people who claim to be Jews really aren't. They don't have a drop of Semitic blood in their veins. They are Khazar warriors with a new bent on life and a goal to conquer, to rape, and to pillage. And that philosophy has come down over time, and we see how effectively they have implemented it throughout history. Now, when they pretended to embrace Judaism, they drew upon the real Jews for some education. And they used the Hebrew alphabet as phonics to codify their Khazar language. And so now we look at that language called Yiddish or Jiddish and find that it is not Hebrew. It only appears to be. Now these people have run into some trouble over time. In 965 AD, they were overrun by the Varganians, which was Swedish-ruled Slavic people. Varganian is the Russian word for Vikings. And they were militarily defeated, which curbed their expansionist philosophy for some time. And then in 1140, they were literally overrun by the Mongols for Kublai Khan and Genghis Khan. And they were driven down into Eastern Europe. Their monarch, the king, or Chagan as he was called, fled to Spain and Portugal. Now, because these folks were a darker skinned people with black hair and brown eyes, it was easier for them to fit in with the folks of Spain and Portugal and Italy and Sicily than they could other places where they stood out and looked markedly different. And they took a great deal of control, especially in Spain and Portugal, so much so that they were discovered in conspiracy because they worked together to get themselves, one of them, into a position of authority where that person can work in tandem with others to get more of their people in authority and positions of power and working it up to where they're running the show and milking everybody else. After they fled down into Europe, there was one of them, a guy by the name of Meyer Amschel Bauerberg, who decided to enter into clandestine world government. Meyer Amschel Bauerberg used the symbol outside of his father's silversmith shop, a large red shield, as inspiration for an alias. And he went by the name of Rothschild. That's German language for red shield. Now, Rothschild was born in 1743, and when he was in his late 20s, he formulated a financial enterprise with 12 other entrepreneurs with the dedication, with the interest and the intent of conquering everybody and everything. They were going to do it with fractional reserve banking, and that turned out to be a very successful tool. We found out about fractional reserve banking at the Bank of Amsterdam in 1610 when, like all fiat money inflations, it came to a roaring bust. And they learned from that and wanted to implement it wherever they could so that they could be the ones that benefited from that enterprise. Now, Meyer Amschel Bauerberg had 5 sons, and he took these 5 sons, and as they became of age, he sent them to foreign countries to operate not an independent banking system, but one in conjunction with the rest of their people. A system whereby Nathan, who went to London and soon proved himself to be shrewd. There was one named Kalman who passed himself off as Carl, and I think he went to Amsterdam. Jacob called himself James in Paris. And we find that throughout the world, in 5 big locations, they had banking institutions that had a very clever idea. And if these people weren't so evil, it would have been easier to admire what they did. But they had a system whereby you could go to one of the banks in one country and deposit gold with them and get a receipt for it. And then go to the foreign country where they had another office, take that receipt and get your gold. And you didn't run the risk of losing your gold on the high seas. either to wind or to pirates or anything else. So in a way, it was kind of a clever scheme, however. These people were despicably evil, and their intent to make money was to not just put themselves for their head, but to hold others back.
Hiya. He has 10 newspapers where these Jews are pushing us 6 million figure between the years of 1915 and 1938. The first newspaper is The Sun of New York. New York, June the 6th, 1915. That is The Sun. It's the first page of the 5th section that I want. And there we go. The Sun, it's a bit ripped along there, it's all come off a bit. The 5th section is the front page. And the article is called Horrors Worse than Kishinev, Charged Against Russia Today. And there's a big article. Takes up most of the page. So go in, yeah, go. Since the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem, the Jewish people have had no darker page in their history than that which the Russian government is writing today. 6 million Jews, one half of the Jewish people throughout the world, are being persecuted, hounded, humiliated, tortured, starved. Thousands of them have been slaughtered. Hundreds of thousands of Jews, old men, women and children, are being driven mercilessly from town to town. There it is, people. 6 million Jews. One half of the Jewish people throughout the world are being persecuted, hounded, humiliated, tortured and starved. As I go along here, support here as well. Dear brethren, have mercy on the 6 million Jews in Russia and take our part. Once again, 6 million Jews in Russia. 6 million. This is in an article entitled Horrors Worse than Kishinev, Charged Against Russia Today. That's in the Sun of New York, Sunday, June the 6th, 1915. This is 18 years before Hitler ever set foot in the government. 18 years. This is the next newspaper. This is the New York Times again. This is from 1918. There it is. The New York Times. October the 18th, 1918. It's page 12 that I want. There we go. Page 12. Page 12. The New York Times. October the 18th, 1918. And the article is called $1 billion fund to rebuild Jewry. There it is. 6 million souls will need help to resume normal life when war is ended. 6 million souls. As I go down the article here, here's again. 6 million Jews need help. 6 million. 6 million Jews need help. That's in an article called $1 billion fund to rebuild Jewry. That is in the New York Times, October the 18th, 1918. There's the next newspaper. This is New York Times again. The New York Times, September the 8th, 1919. It's page 6 that I want. There we go. Page 6. Page 6. The New York Times, September the 8th, 1919. And the article is called Ukrainian Jews Aim to Stop Pogroms. Mass meeting hears that 127,000 Jews have been killed and 6 million are in peril. 6 million. As I go down the article, there it is. We come out now before the world with a determined slogan, "Those pogroms must stop," said the President in his annual message. It is only a question of holding these facts continually before the civilized world. We must not permit the world to slumber. This fact that the population of 6 million souls in Ukraine and in Poland have received notice through action and by word that they are going to be completely exterminated. You literally cannot make this up. 6 million souls completely exterminated. 6 million. That is an article called Ukrainian Jews Aim to Stop Pogroms in the New York Times, September the 8th, 1919. This is 13 and a half years before Hitler come to power. This is the next newspaper. This is the New York Times again. The New York Times, the date, November the 12th, 1919. It's page 7 that I want on here. There you go. Page 7 in the New York Times, November the 12th, 1919. The article is called Tells Sad Plight of Jews. Felix M. Warburg says they were the worst sufferers in the war. There it is here. The successive blows of contending armies have all but broken the back of European Jewry, he said, and have reduced to tragically unbelievable poverty, starvation and disease about 6 million souls, or half the Jewish population of the earth. 6 million. 6 million souls, or half the Jewish population of the earth. I'll go further down the article so you can read the rest of it. There is again, people. Unbelievable poverty, starvation and disease. About 6 million souls, or half the Jewish population of the earth. An article entitled Tells Sad Plight of Jews in the New York Times, November the 12th, 1919. This is the next newspaper. This is the Atlanta Constitution from 1920. February 23rd, 1920. The article's on the front page here. It's called $50,000 raised in city to save suffering Jews. And it goes along the bottom. continued on page 3, column 4. So I'll go to page 3. There we go. Constitution, Atlanta, February 23rd, 1920. There it is. $50,000 raised to save suffering Jews. Continued from first page. I'll go down. He called upon the Atlanta Jews to arise to the occasion and to contribute to the emergency fund in order that the lives of 6 million of Jewish people may be saved. 6 million of Jewish people may be saved. I'll go further down. Rabbi Mark speaks. Rabbi Marks made an eloquent plea for generous responses to the call of the representatives of the Jewish Relief Fund. He drew a graphic picture of the starvation and suffering of the 6 million Jews who live in Eastern Europe and Palestine. 6 million Jews. Thousands upon thousands of our people have died of starvation and pestilence, and thousands more will die, he said. There it is, people. 6 million Jews. In an article entitled $50,000 raised to save suffering Jews in the Constitution of Atlanta, February 23rd, 1920. This is the next newspaper. This is the New York Times. This is from 1920. There we go. The New York Times. The date, Friday, May the 7th, 1920. It's page 11 that I want. There we go. Page 11. Page 11. The article is called "A Jewish War Aid Gets $100,000 Gift." There it is. The Fund for Jewish War Sufferers in Central and Eastern Europe, where 6 million face horrifying conditions of famine, disease and death, was enriched yesterday by a contribution of $100,000 from Nathan Strauss. Where 6 million face horrifying conditions of famine, disease and death. 6 million face horrifying conditions of famine, disease and death. I'll just go down the rest of the article if anybody wants to read it. There's an article called "Jewish War Aid Gets $100,000 Gift" in the New York Times, Friday, May the 7th, 1920. Here's the New York Times again. This is 1921. There you go. New York Times, Wednesday, July the 20th, 1921. It's page 2 that I want. There we go. Page 2. Page 2. New York Times, July 20th, 1921. And the article is called "Begs America, Save 6 Million in Russia. Massacre Threatens All Jews as Soviet Power Wanes, Declares Kreinin, Coming Here for Aid." Look at that. Russia's 6 million Jews are facing extermination by massacre. As the famine is spreading, the counter-revolutionary movement is gaining, and the Soviets' control is waning. Now, this is one of the biggest articles of the lot. This is 1921, 12 years before Adolf Hitler ever set foot in the government. Look at that. Russia's 6 million Jews are facing extermination by massacre. That's an article entitled "Begs America Save 6 Million in Russia" on page 2 in the New York Times, Wednesday, July 20th, 1921. This is the Gazette of Montreal. This is 1931. The Gazette, Montreal, Tuesday, December the 29th, 1931. This is over a year before Hitler come to power. The Gazette, it's page 6 that I want. There we go. Page 6. Page 6. The Gazette, Montreal, December the 29th, 1931. And the article pretty much speaks up for itself. 6 million Jews face starvation. 6 million. Bad conditions in southeastern Europe reported by Rabbi Wise. Fears crisis at hand. 6 million Jews in Eastern Europe face starvation, and even worse during the coming winter. 6 million Jews. I'll give you a look at the rest of the article. The article is called 6 million Jews face starvation. The Gazette of Montreal, December the 29th, 1931. 1.5 years before Adolf Hitler ever set foot in the government. This is the next newspaper. This is New York Times again. There we go. New York Times. But this is dated 1936. Sunday, May the 31st, 1936. This does not say the 6 million Jews, but it does say Holocaust. New York Times. It's page 14 that I want. There we go. Page 14, the New York Times, May the 31st, 1936. And the article is called "Americans Appeal for Jewish Refuge." It's quite a big article. But it's along here. Yeah. The petition, in expressing the opinion of enlightened Christian leadership in the United States favouring a larger Jewish immigration into Palestine, stressed the intolerable sufferings of the millions of Jews in the European Holocaust. The European Holocaust in 1936, before the Second World War even started. You go up here. There it is again. Great Britain has it within her power to throw open the gates of Palestine and let in the victimised and persecuted Jews escaping from the European Holocaust. The European Holocaust in 1936, 3.5 years before the Second World War ever even started. That's in an article entitled "Americans Appeal for Jewish Refuge," the New York Times, May the 31st, 1936. Here's the next newspaper. This is New York Times again. New York Times. This is dated February the 23rd, 1938. This is before the Second World War started. About a year and a half. The New York Times. It's page 23 that I want. There you go. Page 23. The New York Times, February 23rd, 1938. And the article is called Jewish Teachers Chided by Isaacs. I'll go along the bottom. And is a Jewish tragedy pictured. A depressing picture of 6 million Jews in Central Europe deprived of protection or economical opportunities, slowly dying of starvation, all hope gone, was presented to the teachers by Jacob Tarshis. The Jewish tragedy started when Hitler came into power in 1933. There it is again, people. 6 million Jews in Central Europe, slowly dying of starvation. 6 million. This is in 1938. Jewish teachers chided by Isaacs. New York Times, February 23rd, 1938. A year and a half before the Second World War even started.